So, okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes. So, welcome for. J'entends rien. Okay. Welcome for this talk. My name is Frédéric Ooms. I'm assistant professor in entrepreneurship, and I'm going to speak about the study we are doing with entrepreneurs. So, here in this room, who is an entrepreneur? Raise your hand. Okay, so many of you. So what I would like to show you today and discuss today is the research that we are conducting at the intersection of neuroscience and entrepreneurship. So we know that our society is facing many challenges, climate challenges, health challenges like the COVID crisis we experience, also geopolitical challenges, but also new technologies such as AI, which are coming. And at HEC, we believe that we need more and more entrepreneurs, so people who are able to make decisions in a highly uncertain environment. But when we look at entrepreneurship, I'm coming from the academic world. When we try to understand entrepreneurs, first we started from the personality trait of the entrepreneurs. We try to understand if entrepreneurs have specific traits that could help us to predict if they will become or not successful entrepreneur. And what we know from many years of research is that there are no personality trait that could explain if someone will become a successful entrepreneur or an unsuccessful entrepreneur. And that's how we started to look at how entrepreneurs are thinking and most particularly how they are acting. And this is the base of the research that I'm conducting with my colleagues at HEC, with Stephen Lorez at the GIGA at Liège. And we started a big survey 4 years ago, starting from the following assumption. Entrepreneurs have higher cognitive flexibility, meaning an adaptability to switch from one plan to another according to the environment and the changes that are happening. That was our initial assumption. And so for doing so, we tested many people, entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, but also managers, to see if there were any differences in terms of their cognitive flexibility. That's typically the kind of stuff that most of people hate, but you have to perform lots of statistics. And what we demonstrated using these surveys, using this scale, is that people who are launching many times a company, what we call serial or habitual entrepreneur, they report that they have higher flexibility, higher cognitive flexibility, meaning more adaptability, when compared to first-time entrepreneurs or when compared to people who are working in an established company as a manager. So this is what we demonstrated in the first study. We surveyed about 1,000 people, 500 entrepreneurs, 500 managers, and we realized and we demonstrated that these were the kind of findings. And I say hello to one of my former students. Hello. So that was the initial part of this study. But with my background, I'm coming from the world of chemistry, and I already did a lot of neuroscience in the past, developing drugs for the brain. I was interested by another very important question. And some of our colleagues really believe that we try to understand entrepreneurs and the way they think and the way they act by using questionnaire, but we should also look into something more specific, which is our brain. And that's how we started this research with the help of Stephen Lorez and his team. And we decided to look at the brain of entrepreneurs, at the brain of habitual entrepreneurs. And we asked habitual entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, to come and visit us at the hospital. And we performed an MRI scan of their brain. And we compared the scan of their brain with the scan of the brain of people who are working in established companies as managers. Maybe that you know that the brain has some neuroplasticity, meaning that if you do something many times, the brain will reconnect. The brain will change a little bit. There will be new connections, but the structure will also be different. And for example, there was one very famous study that was done in the past, one of the first one with a London cab taxi driver. In the past, no GPS. So to get a license as a London cab driver, you had to work during 2 years and pass an exam showing that you know exactly the map of London, or at least a specific area, and you had no GPS for that. So you had to know everything by memory. So what those scientists did, they scanned the brain of these cab drivers in London, and they compare it with the brain of bus driver in London. And what they found was very surprising and interesting, is that one part of the brain, which is responsible of how we locate in space, was bigger in the brain of these cab drivers when compared to the brain of those bus drivers that were doing pretty much the same job in London. So based from there, we ask, could it be also the same for habitual entrepreneurs? Do serial entrepreneurs have different structure of their brain? Do they have different connectivity between some brain regions? And is it coming from the fact that they launch many times a business? That was the question we wanted to explore. And we, most importantly, wanted to see if the higher cognitive flexibility that we obtain from the measurement, from the questionnaire, if it could be associated with modification in the brain of these entrepreneurs. So what we did, we invited 23 habitual entrepreneurs, 70 managers at the University of Liège, and those people came early Sunday morning before the 2 COVID crises, and we started to record the brain using MRI and using EEG. And we also asked them to conduct behavioral tasks, so decision-making tasks, to see if they were taking decision in a different way than people who are used to work in a more rational and less uncertain environment, such as established company. And what we found was really interesting, and we were very happy with this study because that was the first time in the world that we started to explore the brain of entrepreneur that way. And we showed that one part of the brain, left insula, was a little bit bigger when compared to the left insula of the managers. And most surprisingly and most interestingly, we found a correlation between the reported measure, between the scale that we used previously, you remember, the 1,000 participants, and the size of this left insula observed in the different participants. So we showed for the first time that within that group of entrepreneurs and managers, something happened. And that the brain of the structure of the brain changed a little bit. This is what we call voxel-based morphometry. It's a particular way to analyze MRI data to see if there is something happening in our brain. We are using those kind of methods also to check the brain of people who have some mental problem, mental issue, and some mental issue are associated also with changes in the structure of the brain of these patients. Next, we used another method which is called resting state functional MRI. What does that mean? The idea is the following. We ask the entrepreneurs to lie inside the MRI, doing nothing, which is already pretty much something completely weird for entrepreneurs. They had to lie inside the machine, doing nothing. And we know that when we do nothing, our brain is still functioning, and there are still connections between different parts of our brain, and those connections are coming from the experience and the fact that we experience many, many times the same stuff. So, based from there, by asking people to lie inside the machine to do nothing, no meditation, no calculation, just stay awake, you can check if there are connections between brain regions which are not close together. Okay, what we do, we split the brain in many, many small pieces, and we look at the signal within each part of the brain. And if we find that a signal in a particular area correlates with a signal in another part of the brain, it means that those two brain regions are functionally connected. They are working together. And they are working together because they were many times activated by some specific behaviors. Okay? It's okay, I don't lose you, yeah? So, what you do, you pick a brain region. In our hypothesis, the right insula. Because we know that this part of the brain is in charge of managing uncertainty, making decisions under uncertainty, switching between exploration and exploitation. And so we picked that region and we looked at the brain signal that was recorded inside the MRI. And then we compared that signal with all the other signal in many, many different brain regions for each people who participated to the survey. And we found that there was a brain region, the right frontal pole, which was strongly associated with the insula. And if we looked at the connection between these two brain regions, the right insula and the right frontal pole, we observed that it's a little bit like if you had a small root in the groups of managers. They are connected, for sure. But it's a little bit like a small route. Your car drives, but not too fast. And if you look at the connection between these two brain regions in the group of serial entrepreneurs, what we observed is that it's a little bit like if you had a highway. Not the same as today to come from Liège to Brussels, because that's a huge traffic jam, but a smooth highway where cars are driving fast. And that's very interesting because these two brain regions are both associated with the fact that you can switch from exploiting something and exploring something else. So they are associated in a certain way with your cognitive flexibility, the adaptability. So what we showed here is that serial entrepreneurs, people who are used to create many times new businesses, because we only focus on business creators, not people who purchase business. So people who create many, many times businesses and who are facing many times uncertain situations, uncertain environments, when you look at their brain, comparing to people who are managing, who have managing position, it seems that there is a kind of highway between two brain regions which are important for switching between exploring and exploiting. And more interestingly, again, when you look at the strength of this connection that you can measure for every participant, and that you try to correlate that with the scale when they report how flexible they are, again, we found that there was some correlation between what we observed using questionnaires and what we observed in the brain. So all these studies are really starting. It's the very beginning of this research that we are doing at Liège and HEC. And it raises the classical question that we like to, and that many people ask, is it born or is it made? Are we born as an entrepreneur, or can we learn to be one? Since I'm a teacher, I strongly believe that you can learn it. But that's the question that we are now exploring. We want to see if experiencing the entrepreneurial journey, if it brings some modification, some higher cognitive flexibility with the people who are doing it. And we will continue to do so, and we will continue this journey, and we enter that journey by using many, many different measurement tools. Because you can look at the brain of people by using MRI, by using EEG, but we can also use eye tracking, we can also use FNIRS, we can also use physiological data, your blood pressure, your heart rate, and many, many other stuff. And this is what we start to explore and we start to develop in my lab with my colleagues. So if you are interested to join this study and to be part of the next participants and to be recruited in this study, you can scan this QR code, and for the ones who will be invited to do a brain scan, we are going to record 120 brain of entrepreneurs. You will receive, that's our gift, a 3D printed model of your own brain. So that was the gift that we provided to the previous entrepreneurs. So they came back with their own brain that you can put on a shelf or on your desk in your office, whatever you want. So there are a couple of minutes left. I would be more than happy to answer some of your questions if there are any. So feel free, and I will try to do my best. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. It was a nice presentation. So yeah, as the professor mentioned, so if you guys have any questions, please raise your hand. I will come to your place and land over the microphone. Okay.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was really, really eye-opening. So far in your studies, I understood in the end that you're still conducting studies. So far, would you say that it's something that we're born with, or that we acquire, or is it like half-half? How do you see it? Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the question. So my assumption is that you have some kind of predisposition to behave, to think, to act in such a world, and then you can foster it and continue to develop it. Today, we believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur or should become an entrepreneur. It's not a journey that fits for everyone. I often take the example, if you like to go on holidays with a backpack, it's a little bit like you don't know where you will go, where you will sleep, where you will eat. That's probably something for which some people like to do it and others don't. So there are predispositions, most probably, and then you can develop them more. So that's the idea. But I don't think that you have to get them as soon as you are a child or as soon as you are born.
Okay. All right, I'll come to you. Maybe can you help out here, because the microphone is wired. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I missed that part, but have you gotten to a conclusion if the flexibility happens because they are serial entrepreneurs, or they are serial entrepreneurs because they have the flexibility? Which one is leading to the other?
It's again a little bit closely related to the previous question. We still have to figure out. So what we are going to do is doing what we call longitudinal study. We are going to measure the cognitive flexibility when you enter the journey, and we will measure it many, many times for many months or several years, and we will see if there are any evolution. The only stuff I can say is the following. When you look at habitual entrepreneurs and when you look at managers, at entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, so people who did not launch many, many businesses, the habitual one, the serial one, have higher cognitive flexibility when compared to the entrepreneurs. So there is probably something there. now the big question is it because they have it that they are serial? Question mark. And that's, if you want to join the study, that's the stuff we are going to explore now.
Okay, anyone else? Yeah, can you help to come here, sir? Thank you.
So you include the serial entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs and managers. Don't you want to include some employees as well? Just to check?
Yep. Again, definitively. So if you want to come in my team and do research with me, do it, because you have all very good questions. So yes, indeed, there is this question of the control group, and also if you are a manager, you could be an entrepreneur. So yes, we are going to include different groups, different people, employees, but also entrepreneurs who acquire businesses, which we suppose are more rational people because they are facing less uncertainty. You have a running and established business. So that's the kind of control groups that we need to include. First-time entrepreneurs, nascent entrepreneurs. So yeah, there are many stuff to do.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, maybe after.
So hi, thank you for your presentation. I just have a question. Do you cross your study with the social aspect of what is and who is an entrepreneur? I mean, someone who's born in a certain family will have access to being an entrepreneur, and I think it's the part of the study. So I see you not, so I'll let you answer. Thank you very much.
So yes, again, totally right. So lots of good scientists today. So yes, indeed, and we know that if your parents are entrepreneurs, it will influence your behaviors, and probably you will have higher cognitive flexibility when compared to someone who have parents who are, okay, in other job positions, definitively. So that's the kind of stuff that when you do your experiments, you try to control them. You try to ask if the parents are entrepreneurs. The same for the managers. We control if they have the intention to become one, or if they already worked in a company as a startup. So that's the kind of stuff you indeed have to control, definitively.
Yeah, my question was, thank you for your presentation. I just took it at the end. I will definitely review it on YouTube. The question was, why not follow the same guy in the beginning of his entrepreneurial life and see after if his brain have evolved to answer the question if it's something you acquire or if it's something which is...
Because what we try to understand is the following. Does entrepreneurial education or does the entrepreneurial journey foster some competencies, some abilities that are important or critical, or at least we believe so, for the actual challenges that we are facing? There are many drawbacks and limits to that approach, but the only way to see if there is something which changes before and after is to follow them. That's the only way. It's impossible to take a snapshot at a specific time, because then you cannot create the link. And this is where we are now. We see differences, but it's yet impossible to state that it's due to the experience or to the genetics or whatever else.
Anyone else? No? Okay. So thank you for your presentation, Professor. So yeah.
And don't hesitate, QR code is there. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.